About this. It's about that time of year where Friday nights are going to be humming and the lights are going to be on and people are going to be excited. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm Jim Gill, the library director. I wanted to point out our incredible thermometer here. This was the proceeds from our book sale. We're trying to make $5 or $6 grand, starting an endowment fund for the library, so we have an alternative revenue stream for our public library for years and years to come. Well, we raised $10,000. It's amazing how generous the community is. So appreciate everybody, all the support for the library. So if you want to learn more about the endowment fund, just let me know. We have a couple things we're going to talk about, upcoming programs. Cheryl has several she's going to talk about. I do want to point out one. Our Tuscarawas Valley Civil War Roundtable meets right in this room. We're going to kick it off on Thursday, September 10th, and our featured topic, Horses of the Civil War. So we all know about Traveler, right? Robert E. Lee's horse. Well, there are a lot of other famous horses who are as much a part of that war as often the men on top of them, riding them. So we're going to learn about that.
6:30.
6:30, yes. Yep.
It was General Grant was quite a horseman.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons that you read his stuff. He's quite the horseman too. So,
If you're interested about that. Roundtable every month is a different topic on some aspect of the Civil War.
Donnie's coming.
Oh, great. We'll get him in here then.
Yeah.
Wanted to mention too, last Tuesday was our Tuscarawas County High School football preview, and Coach Morris was there. Did a great job. It's an annual thing. This is our 4th year. The Tuscarawas County Sports Hall of Fame is home base is the Dover Public Library. It's what the organization serves the entire county. It's just not a Dover, New Philly thing. And we're really proud of that and how we have kept the induction ceremonies going. It's every 2 years. So I want you to be thinking about, if you want to nominate someone for the Hall of Fame, we're looking for a class of 2028. We do it every 2 years. But that football preview night was a special night as we talked about the season, and we actually promoted this event there as well. I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl. She has a few things she's going to mention.
Well, first of all, I'm going to mention, I always mention the artwork. This is Fawn Long. This is her artwork. Every month there's a new art exhibit here in the library. The junior, is it Colonian? Clionian, okay. They made this, I believe, for the 1976 celebration. So each square has somewhere hidden, not so hidden here, but somewhere hidden the initials of the lady who did the stitching for each square. So that's always nice to see in here. I wanted to tell you that still coming up here in August, on the 18th, Carmela Rausch is coming. She's going to do a 3-part series on when life changes and throws you a curveball, how do you pick yourself up from that and move on, and how do you get through that? So that will be very interesting. And then TV Pasco is coming August 27th. That's a Thursday night here at 6:30. He is a former police captain, worked in different areas of the police department in Akron, and he wrote 2 books about those experiences, based on his experiences, not real life, but novels. Nights on the Graveyard Watch, and his newest book is Insolvency. And then in September, one of the most important things coming up, I think, is a cemetery walk. We're, part of our 250th celebration for September is sports and wellness. So we're going to go out to the Dover Burial Park, and Kim Jurkovic, our local historian, is going to give a talk. Maybe there will be some spirits out there helping her. Give a talk about some of the famous athletes in our area who are buried out at the Dover Burial Park. So always good things coming up at the library. You can check online. You can come in and get these little papers that are out at the front desk. Always something good to see here at the library. So thanks for coming.
This program is the idea of John Mark. See, this is his brainchild. What a great idea this was, to get together and swap stories, talk about football back in the era when they played and coached, but also how it's changed. Just have conversations and just have some dialogue, and not just with each other and their stories, but if you've got questions. This is very low key, very informal. If you have a question for one of them, well, it's no problem. Raise your hand, we'll work it in. So John is going to be our moderator this morning. He is going to introduce the panel, or they're going to introduce themselves, or however we're going to do that. And just please just enjoy this morning. And we are going to record it because we have lots of people who say they had a conflict and they wanted to see it. And so we do have a YouTube channel for the library. We keep a lot of our programs on local history. We put on that. And this is certainly the one we're going to add to our lineup of programs. So John, thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the library for hosting this. It's one of those things that as we come through the years, libraries always played. I did go to the library when I was a student. We had one at the high school. We know the library and the high school were very close. I tell you how bad it was. I can remember when it was, the library was in the house down the street.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes.
It was, and that's what the Dover Library was. But that house still here?
It's the apartment building.
It's the apartment building?
Yes, yes. And then there is a photo of it in this hallway by the children's room of the old library, if you don't remember it. If you all want to say this.
So I can't remember that. But as things go on, the library has stood up as a pretty much a force in Dover and Dover schools to quality and excellence. And one of the things that I was doing as I retired and got more and more into memories, I have a lot of stuff, like everybody. But as a coach, I have a lot more stuff that you may understand. Some of it should be seen and shared. And I know they talked about putting a historical room at the Dover High School when they were building that. I'm not sure if that ever carried weight or not. And there's things that we did as coaches. Now, again, I was the head coach, but two assistants beside me were basically the meat of the program. Tom Armstrong, Jimmy Meese, and I brought Jimmy Morris into it because we coached Jimmy. And now he told me a story that he has been, how many years, Jim?
Coaching total?
Yeah.
40.
So he's only been coaching 40 years.
He's not that old.
Well, when he started.
Don Hertler, you got a spot. If I can keep you and Jimmy Morris away from each other. This is Donnie Hertler.
Hi.
Famous coach at North Canton. And what started...
I did not ring the bell.
We're going to get to that. Donnie, you were at Canaan Valley, then Garaway, then North Canton.
Yes.
And then you...
Massam 1 year as an offensive coordinator.
I know you were at Massillon.
Yes.
And you could walk on, he could walk onto any field in Tuscarawas County and Stark County, and people would glad that he's there observing and be part of it. But to go back with the age thing, Jimmy Moore's 40 years coaching, my goodness. However, we coached against Donnie's father, who was coaching for how many years, Donnie, before
He was head coach at Hoover 21.
21 years at North Canton Hoover. Now maybe we ought to start and get that Dover, North Canton Hoover thing back started again, because it was quite a game. At one time, I think it was on our schedule. Couldn't beat you very many times, but for the most part, it was, you had some great players.
They were fun games.
I like
Those
fun.
were fun games.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I'm going to start with one story since Donnie is here, and I have to talk behind his back. The one story about Dover, North Canton. It was a big game. Both of us were very good. I don't know if we were undefeated, but both played excellent football up until this first game. And North Canton was on the field warming up. And I had two sons. They were my ball boys, okay? And they ran around, they thought they ran the stadium. So for some reason, they decided to go down to the North Canton end of the field warming up. They thought they had left balls and tees there. So they brought North Canton balls and tees back to the Dover bench. Well, Donnie had a special kicking shoe, am I right, Don?
Square toe, yeah.
Square-toed kicking shoe. Well, they taken the square-toed kicking shoe. So, that sort of started them being upset at us, because we didn't start playing it. And then, him about ringing the bell. Dover used to have a victory bell right beside the bench. Now, that was not there when I played, but they put it there someplace between the time I played and the time I started coaching at Dover. And the bell was to indicate how many points you won by. When you won, you would ring the bell. Well, somebody in North Canton thought it'd be appropriate to ring the bell since they won the game, and they would demonstrate how they could ring the bell. That started the brawl. Jimmy Morris, I had an injury, I think, at the time, right, Jimmy?
That's correct.
What were we talking?
And
No, I never made it past the sideline.
go, I'm gonna let you guys take up the spots I leave off. But anyhow, you know, when you go to the principal's office first thing on Monday morning after a game, you know things may not be very good of you know, who's at the bottom of all this. So, Jimmy Morris, go ahead and tell your end of the bell ringing, and this will be start us off on stories, and we'll get to some other things in just a bit.
Yeah, the week before we were playing Mansfield Madison, and our own player, the tight end caught a pass, and I went up for a tackle, and our own player submarined us both, and I ended up fracturing my leg. So at that time, I was on crutches, and as it was going on, they had two really good trick plays that led to them scoring and winning at the end of the game. And needless to say, by the time the end of the game came around, I was only with one crutch, because I broke the other one on the ground after they scored the touchdown. So I'm hobbling a little bit, and I'm carrying this one crutch, and the game's over, and all I see is a bunch of guys in another uniform coming over to the bell. We had a young man, Todd Espensheed, who his knee was messed up, and we later found out that he had cancer in his knee. So he went over to protect the bell, and one of the guys pushed him down. And as that was happening, I took my crutch and hit the guy in the back with it. And all hell.
You were the guy with the crutch.
I was the guy with the crutch.
I remember it differently.
I'm glad we brought you in. How'd you look at it, Donnie?
One of our two best players was hurt, he didn't play. And we heard the bell like the year before, we lost 35-28, and we had 7 shutouts that year. So that was our junior year. Robbie Woods, James Black, Jamie DeVore, Truckley, the rest of the crew, they had tons of, it was just a great game. I mean, just a great game. And so our best player at the end of this game, after we ran the hook and ladder and scored, I'm still worried about throwing over our safety's head. I'm not even thinking about anything. I heard him say something, let's go ring that bell, and it's like, okay, whatever, you know, that's the last thing in my mind. And so he wasn't very bright about that, and he got a couple guys to go with him. He was really good at starting things and then not finishing them. He was that idea guy that didn't. He played at Akron U and played for the Pirates organization. He played football and baseball there. But so I'm on the field shaking Espensheed's hand after the game. That's what I remembered, because we both played quarterback against each other and all the way through, and he couldn't play. And I just remember talking with him, and then stuff broke out, you know, over by the bell, which was our fault all the way. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. You know, it was stupid. You know, got caught in the emotions, got tired of hearing that bell, and I'm gonna go ring it.
And the worst part was your team doctor was my doctor at the time, and his dad either hyperventilated.
Yeah, they thought he was having
a heart attack.
Correct, but he
So while the fight's going on and everything's going wild, they're trying to administer to his dad, and then when it was all said and done and they finally separated, I don't think we even shook hands. I mean, really. They told me that I needed to go to the Hoover locker room because that's where the doctor was to see me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I can't go in there. I mean, I got my uniform on, so I'm like, they'll kill me, they'll lynch me, there's no way. So he actually came out and met me. But by the sidelines, but that was a hairy experience.
Yeah, I wasn't around the fight at all, I wasn't around the bell at all, so I really didn't really know until I went in the locker room and I was holding our defensive coordinator back because the guy was yelling from the stands at him. But Roger Viscount was strong enough that I wasn't gonna hold him back at 140 pounds. So he really wasn't going after anybody, but he was putting on a little bit of a show, I thought. But it was a unbelievable game.
It was.
Mr. Worley.
Bad way to finish.
What year are we talking about?
80 season.
1980.
80. At Dover.
Yes.
You didn't travel to Dover?
No, we didn't take the belt with us anyway.
You had, my sophomore year, Todd Blackledge, you guys came up and you were in the top 10 in the state at that point of the year, and Todd had a great game.
Yes.
And actually, that got him to Penn State, actually. And we upset you guys. We weren't that great my sophomore year at all. Not the most quality guys in the world. And then the next year, we were 9-1, and our only loss was down in Dover. Then the next year, we were 8-2. We lost to McKinley the week before. We lost to Perry early, lost to McKinley the week before, and then beat Dover. We played back-to-back home games at Dover, which I'm not sure why that happened, but it happened.
Was it just 1 year? How long did that bell last? Just a year?
The bell?
It wasn't long.
At least 2
No,
years.
it was gone after the North Canton game.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mr. Baker was the athletic director or not, but I was in the meeting that morning. I wasn't the head coach, but for the most part, all the coaches, we were irate, obviously. They come and ring our bell, but for the most part, as I look at it now, just a kid, just, it was no big deal, but it was. But they took the bell out.
I love the name of this story. It's called The Bell.
The bell.
Yes.
And then the rest of it goes on forever.
Everybody knows the bell that went through that process. I meant to introduce the other people on the panel. Donnie Hertler obviously coming in, and I hate to put him right on the docket right away, but I knew he was going to come up. We might as well get that one out of the way. Donnie Hertler, as he's already said, Jimmy Morris, 2 M's. Why, I don't know. Again, Jimmy played for us at Dover. Tom Armstrong. Tom, how long did you coach, Tommy? What was your tenure at Dover?
Well, I was 32 years there, but then I had 8 years to lie before I started there, so I guess when I was coaching I was the physical director at the Y and coaching the swim team there. And so I guess total of 40 some.
And you came to Dover in what year? You remember?
I never left it.
You had to coach.
Right.
Yeah,
You were at Strasburg, right?
I left the Y in 1970. I don't know, 71. So I was at Strasburg for 2 years and then opened up here, and then I came here in 73, I think was my first year here.
Yeah, because I coached with you at Strasburg
Yep.
in 72. Okay, beside me is Jim Meese. Jim is Dover boy, just like we all are here, except for Donnie.
He wishes he was.
We would
I
invite
lived in
him.
the area for 10 years.
Jim, tell us a little bit about your background.
Kind of interesting. I started coaching at Indian Valley South High School. And that was the first year they had Indian Valley North and Indian Valley South. And South at the last minute decided to have a football team. They didn't have anybody on the schedule, but they were gonna have a football team. And we had like 17 kids. And they had found a gentleman to be the head coach and asked me if I'd like to be an assistant. I said, sure. Because I knew we were going to be teaching kids right from the start, because Port Washington had never played football. So it was just like, having junior high kids out there, and you teach them the stance and the whole thing. But anyhow, that first year we went 1-5-1. We played, I think we played Philly Reserves and a couple other. And the head coach says, I'm out of here. I can't take it. So he went back to West Virginia to coach with his high school coach. And they asked me if I was interested in the job, and I said, oh, sure, because, it's a lot of fun coaching those young kids. Well, they decided to go in the IBC the second year. And St. Joe's, Tom Corab was at Denison St. Mary, Ward Holsworth was at Newcomerstown, and it just kept going and going. And my first game as a head coach in 1960, maybe 68, was against Ward at Newcomerstown. And he was loaded. He had Parks and Witter, another kid. They beat us 51-0. And Ward is a fraternity brother of mine from Muskingum. So after the game, I went out in the middle of the field, shook his hand, and said, "Ward, thanks for not running the score." And he looked at me like, "Yeah, we only had like 17 kids." And he was loaded. And he just kind of smiled. "What do you mean?" I said, "You could run that sweep all night. You could beat us 90-0. But then the next week we went to Garraway. We beat Garraway. And you'd have thought we'd won the Super Bowl. Fans, boy, they were beeping their horn all the way back to Denate. Man, they were all excited. Then the next week we went to Jewett-Silent and won 35-0. Now they thought we'd arrived. Well, that was the last time we won that year. We ended up 2-8, and the next year we ended up 4-6. But one game I really remember that was kind of unusual. I think it was our first year. Somehow they ended up putting Walsh Jesuit on our schedule. And that was their first graduating class. And it was an all-boys school at the time. And we went up to Walsh Jesuit, and I think we had like 23 kids, and Walsh just kept coming out and going across the lines. They were loaded. They must have had about 100 kids. And needless to say, we got beat that day, and got no money for going up. They didn't pay for gas to get us up there. And the next week they played Massive. I figured that one out. But I was there 3 years, then I came to Dover in 1970 with Tom Redden. And I coached with Tom for 9 years. And then Joe Cotley came, I coached with Joe. And then Bob Maltries came for 3 years, coached to him. And I coached with John for 4 years. So that was my coaching history of where I was and what I did.
You know, I just was telling Jim before this, but I came to the Y in 65, I think. I was at a Y in Pennsylvania right after I got out of the Navy. And so I came here, and it was the old Y. Most of you remember the old Y, I would assume. And there was a controversy. Some wanted to stay there and build another pool or build another gym or something, and the rest of them said, "No, we got to move. There's no parking," and it was busy. So one time I was my schedule was really something. I mean, it was 6 days a week, and the winters were the worst because we had church league. I'd get home maybe 11 o'clock at night after running the church league, closing the Y up, taking the stuff to the paper, and it was too much. We had 3 kids, and Karen was home with them all day, and it wasn't a good situation. So they were going to build a new Y. And so one day I went to the board meeting, and I said to the board, I said, when we move to the new Y, will I have any input on who we hire as an assistant physical director? And I think it was Warren Thurman was in charge of the finance committee then, and he said, "We have no plans on hiring another physical director." I said, "You're going to have a bigger pool, you're going to have 2 gyms, and handball courts, and I'm already working 75 hours a week." That was kind of I decided I'd better get out of there. So I looked around at several different things, and I talked to Dick Gumry. He was a principal at Strasburg, and I played football with him at Dover. And he said, we need a teacher. And then I said, okay. I was going to be teaching biology, and I mentioned a gym up there. You know, you do a lot of different things, you know. But that was the main thing. he said, would you like to help coach? I said, yeah. I've been out of school for 10 or 12 years out of Wittenberg, and I thought, yeah, it'd be fun. And so I'm going to be an assistant coach, and I can still go to school in the evenings and take stuff that I needed, I thought. And about the middle of the summer, he called, he said, hey, Tom, would you like to be the head coach? Our head coach resigned. And I said, I don't think so. I don't have an offense, I don't have a defense, I don't know, it's been a long time since I was coaching or playing. But I said, well, I know it's tough, but try to find somebody else, but if you can't, I won't leave you stuck. Well, I was stuck.
What year was that?
That was around 71, I think, 71. So I did, and I got, I had 2 assistants. One was, neither one of them had ever played football. One told me, I don't know if it was in confidence, but he just mentioned it. The only reason I'm here is I'm going to teach till I'm 26, and then I won't get drafted. That was his reason. And the other one was Jim Worley, who turned out to be a great coach, but not in football. He coached basketball in Philly. He was a good coach. So those were my 2 assistants. I looked around for somebody else. I got Jack Gorby. Some of you may remember Jack Gorby. He played in Dover, and then he played up in Toledo. And he graduated and was waiting around for a job opportunity. And I said, I got one for you. He volunteered up there, and then I got Bill Kidd Jr., which was kind of ironic because Bill Kidd Sr. was the one that ran the score up so bad. And so I got him, and he was still at Columbus, at Capital, but he had no eligibility left. So he came home, he did the summer, and then he came home every weekend for the games. And there was a guy by the name of Clyde Yockey. Some of you may know Clyde Yockey, but he was at Wittenberg when I was at Wittenberg. And he was a trainer. He taped ankles and stuff. And so he was working at Reeves Mill. And he lived in Strasburg. I said, hey, Clyde, would you help? Would you like to help me, tape ankles and stuff? Yeah, I would. He came home one day and he said, we're in trouble. I said, why is that? He said, well, they're giving 60 points over to Mill because we played Central Catholic the first game. And the year before, they had beaten Strasburg in a scrimmage 12 touchdowns to none. So, yeah, we were in trouble. But we worked hard, and we worked hard on defense. And it was, the first half was great. We, let's see, blocked a punt, intercepted passes. I think it was either even at half, or maybe they had scored one, and we had the ball on about the 5-yard line. And my theory was, since I was a lineman, if we can't get this, it came down, we were moving the ball. We had a big fullback by the name of Don Welling, 190-pound fullback, who incidentally was one of those that got killed by that guy that was going around shooting people. Yeah, and he was jogging down the road. This was afterwards. But anyhow, I thought it was 4th and inches. And my theory is, if you can't get 4 inches, you don't deserve to win. Well, we didn't get it. It would have been 5th and a half an inch. But that's where, if I'd have been more experienced, I might have. But anyhow, they were supposed to beat us by 60 points, and they beat us 19 to nothing. Well, that was a pretty good start. And then we played East Canton after that, and they tied us with about just no time on the clock with a field goal. We had them 6-3, and then they tied it. So that was, and we had some other good games and then some other not so good. But it was interesting because I was telling Jim that they finished a year before with 18 kids. And Dick Gumry told me, he said, they just need a little confidence. He said, when they get hurt, they lie on the field, and then people walk them off or carry them off or something, and then they clap for them, and then pretty soon they go back in. So I had to explain to him, if you're hurt bad enough that you have to come out, then you're not going back in. So that was the first scrimmage we had. This kid came over, big kid, starter, and he said, Coach, I hurt my hand. I said, is it hurt bad enough that you got to leave? I said, yes. So pretty soon he came back and he said, I'm ready to go now. I said, sorry. Well, that was it. And we never had a problem like that again. And we played tough. We played some tough teams. Charlie Huggins had them in the Senate League because of basketball. So we were playing all these Senate League teams, which were pretty good teams. And so it was a good experience. And then a couple years later, this opened up in Dover, and I made a little more money. And so I came here and stayed here until I retired. So, but it was a lot of good experiences. And I gave John his first job up in Strasburg, and then I left the poor guy there. But anyhow, so then pretty soon he came here, so we were together again.
Didn't tell the story about, I bought my first house from Tom, and Tom was ripping it, tearing it out, all stuff. We were changing rooms around and different things.
Oh, yeah.
So anyhow, we started talking football, and we knew we were going to cover the plaster walls with something else, paneling, so we would draw plays. We had plays all over the place. Yeah. This is our offense right here. The offense is in the bedroom. Yeah. We got the defense lined up over here in the kitchen.
Yep.
And so I helped with this house, and then we bought it from him. And my first experience was next year the house was all brand new, painted and everything else, so we had to go someplace else to draw plays.
Yeah. We could have taken it off and said, what do we do there?
Took a picture of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first experience of coaching with Tommy. Jimmy, I know you're in a different generational aspect. Give us a little bit more background about your being and coaching, and we'll do the same with Donnie as for some time here.
No, I grew up right next to Raider Stadium, so I was always there. Started out probably about second grade as a water boy, and really just walked myself into it. I didn't ask the coaches, I just showed up until they finally gave me something, because I'd always hang around the huddles. So they're like, here's a towel, here's water, just stick with it. So I did that for every season. I couldn't wait till they got out on the field and did that. And then it was my turn to come up and play, and I really gathered a lot of experience. I mean, these guys had such a huge influence on my life. I'm so thankful that I had them, because each of them, in their own way, had a different way of guiding me and directed me on what I needed to do. But Mr. Meese really was kind of the biggest influence, because I was always in his position. And I'll never forget standing, I was a sophomore, and I had to go against Steve Kopech, who was like 7'9". To me, he was. I mean, realistically, he's probably 6'7". He was huge, and I had to play tight end. Yeah, I had to play tight end because he was a defensive end. And Coach Redmond he would can't you block him? I'm like, I'm 125 pounds. No, I cannot block him. But Mr. Meese was always there to pick me up. And I remember one time he put his arm around me and he looked at me, he said, hey, and this is always something that's always stuck with me. He said, when you become a head coach, and you will be a head coach, he said, don't ever come back. He said, don't do it. He said, you just run into too many problems. And I've always kind of kept that at heart as far as with football. I used that, and then, you know, we would talk, and I knew Coach went to Muskingum, and I thought that'd be a good fit for me too. And so I went off after Dover and went to Muskingum, played with Coach Haycock, who was an outstanding person and had a big impact on my life. Story with him, real simple. I walked in my freshman year. Well, when I got there my freshman year, through two-a-days, I actually worked myself up to second team, and I was going to see some playing time. And after the first game against Ball and Wallace, all of a sudden I was on a scout team and I wasn't getting the reps. I couldn't figure out why, and nobody was really saying anything, and I really didn't know to ask. So I just kind of went through the season kind of ho-hum and like, man, is this the right spot for me? So at the end of the year, we always had a meeting with the coach, and I walked into his office, and he had this big board behind him and had every player on it in every position. And I sat down, and first thing he looked at, he said, how you doing? I said, good. He said, I know you noticed. And I'm like, noticed what? He's like, see where you are? You're down here. The starters are up there. He said, that's where you are right now. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have potential to play, but that's where we see you. You need to pick it up. And I took that to heart and worked my tail off all winter and spring, and came back, and I was able to play the last 3 years at Muskingum and had a really nice career. Then I wasn't sure quite what I wanted to do, and was fooling around trying to get a Canadian football bid and tried out for a few teams. That didn't go very well. Decided I'd switch to baseball and try to get into some Class A baseball. Was playing a little bit down in the Carolinas, and on our travels I put in an application in Virginia, and I was fortunate enough to get a coaching job there. So that's how I started my coaching career in North Stafford, Virginia. And then after a couple years, I came to Newcomerstown, was coaching at Newcomerstown, and that's where I met my lovely wife. And it was a great experience. I got to coach with Coach Cook, who had a tremendous season at Perry up on the lake up there, and turned their program around. And then got a chance to coach at Dover. I think it was Coach Sowers' last year, and I think Coach Meese, you were still there. I think Coach Mark, you moved on from that point, but I'm not sure. That's kind of a blur at that time. It was only 1 year. I was a flag football coach, and then after that, Coach If came into town, and everybody knows the history of that. And, we did some really good things, and after I learned from 10 years from him, I decided, you know what, I think I can be a head coach. So Sandy Valley had an opening, and Rockaway and Fossum was the superintendent at the time, and he got me in there, and we did some nice things at Sandy Valley, and things were going pretty smooth, and I just got tired of the travel. It wasn't very far, but it was far enough for me, and we were starting a family. And Strasburg opened up, and every time I drove through Strasburg, they're always like, you know what, this community is a neat community. It's tight, they care. You know, I know Coach Hurst, he's a great guy. I should have known not to follow Coach Hurst, but I chose that path, and I did so. And we started out rough. I was 0-10 the first year, and the next year I think we went 1-9, but then we went 3-7, then we went 7-3. So we were building a nice thing, and then by that time, my oldest, McGuire, was going to be a freshman in high school, and I really didn't want to take away from what he was going to do, and I knew I couldn't be fair to the kids if I was taking off trying to see him play. So I resigned and thought, you know what, it's good, I'm going to be a fan, this is going to be great. And then Coach just said, you know what, how would you like to come back and coach again? So in 2004, 13, I came back to Dover and coached there until the Strasburg job opened up again. And I took it again for another try just to see if some of the ideas that I gathered would work. So,
Jimmy, very much appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words on, I know these two guys beside me are an integral part of Dover football, and what they taught the kids, I know. We may not have won every game that we played, but we sure gave every effort to make it better. I'm going to do Donnie next on some information from him. I wrote a book called Lost Art of Coaching Football, and Donnie was one of my interviewees. Here's this on paper for Dave Bircher is a longtime assistant of Donnie's, and he said, you're going to have to put that in. When he gives you anything, make sure you get it on typewritten paper, because he can't write.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I sent his questions. I sent questions to him before I wrote the book, and he gave me a piece of paper that looked just like that, and answered. So I finally got it typed up. I had to have several different people give me information of what this was. But Donnie, again, as Coach of the Year, one of the best coaches in the state of Ohio, from the roots of his father, obviously, but he also, Don, it may be Junior on the end of that name, but the Hertler name in coaching is tremendous. So Donnie, I appreciate you coming down, and I know being the only Stark County person here is a little different, but give us a little bit of background about you and what you remember so much in your football coaching career.
I'll talk a little bit about Dover.
Okay.
First, we played junior year. I started the last 6 games in basketball. I didn't start until the last 6 games, and we came down and played Dover. It was Coach Andrews' last regular season game. He was getting fired. And I'm covering Ogletree. Would that be his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Meese had about 28 on me, 28 points. And we came in at halftime, and we drew McKinley, who had Taylor and Stokes that played at Ohio State. And we drew McKinley, and we were playing them in a week, and we were working on this matchup zone on defense, and we came down and played Dover. They were 10-10, but they were a very talented 10-10. And they just beat us by 25 probably. And we went at halftime, we said, we gonna do any matchup? He goes, just keep playing. Just keep playing. He wasn't too worried about it. And unfortunately, we lost to McKinley on a last-second shot a week later with Taylor and Stokes. But it was an unbelievable game. It might have been my most favorite high school moment. To play against Big Ten guys and not get embarrassed and throw a couple shots up that actually went in. I told people if they would have had the 3-point shot when I was playing, I would average 3 instead of 2. You probably heard some of these. Yeah, like my first year in 2nd grade, it was the worst year of my life. My 2nd year was great. I knew half the answers. That's another true one. But my dad and Art Tyner coached in the Big 33 game together. My dad was the head coach in 1976 for that game. And so I spent a week with Art Tyner in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And he'd come up to a game to watch Hoover, and my dad would come down and watch TCC. But to move through it real quickly, you don't want to hear my life story. I graduated from college, and Coach Tyner told Ken Gold, who was in Canaan Valley, that I was looking for a job. And they had a guy take the job and then turn it down like a week later. So my dad drove me to the interview and dropped me off. I would have never found it. To me back then, Canaan Valley was Indian Valley South, Judaic. Like a lot of people up north, that's sort of, I think because of Huggins, because he was at Canaan Valley and then he ended up at South. I think that's part of it, but I would have never found the school. And I got hired there, and we had 2 good football teams. I was assistant coach and I was head baseball, and it was a great learning experience. You know, it's a unique place out there. It's tough. I mean, there's just not much population. There's not many kids, and but those kids are now they're probably 58 to 60 years old now. My first group there, and I'm still in touch with many of those guys. But Art helped me get my first job, and then Art Tyner, when I spent 2 years at Canaan Valley, and as an assistant, then I got the Garraway job, and I got the job at the perfect time. They were really hungry to win. And they had 25 years. The school was together when they brought Wallick, Dundee, and Ragersville in. And I don't think they'd ever won the league, and we were fortunate our first year to win the league. So it's nice to get off to a good start because I worked them like dogs. We weren't very good, but we were in shape. And that's something you can control, and so we really worked hard at that. And so I spent 8 years there, and Art Tyner won his 200th game against me, which if I'm gonna get beat by Art, let's make it something good like that. I'd go to his house after practice a lot of times, and I'd sit in the back, and he'd have his tomatoes and peppers, and he pretty much, Bob Zontini was one, and I mean, I could name hundreds of people who adopted me when I came down here. But I spent 10 years in Tuscarawas County, and 1 year in Yerkesville, and then 9 years in New Philadelphia on High Street. And spent 8 years at Garaway, had a great experience, learned a lot, you know, one day ahead, but there wasn't the pressure. I wasn't Coach Hertler's son down here. I could make my stupid mistakes and not feel like everyone was watching over me, and it was just a good match. It really was a good match. And Garaway to me is a lot like North Canton as far as, Bell Brick, and we had the Hoover Company. And it was right there, and it owned half of the land. So it was very similar that way, you know, more blue collar obviously, but very similar communities when it came to that. And I always felt Dover was the same way. When we'd come down and play, whether it was basketball, baseball, football, we just always felt the same way. You know, just had a lot of respect for Dover, and it's just, I don't know, we just always had great games. And there was never any bad blood when we played. Do you remember any bad blood or anything? It was just a great football game, you know, and there were some good skilled athletes on the field, and coaches that I think knew offense or were sort of wide open. Even Maltridge wasn't his wing T type thing.
Right.
What he did some really neat things out of it. It wasn't just the basic wing T, I guess. He did a lot of different things with it. But I was very blessed to come in this area and get my start. And I've been fortunate enough to, Canot Valley called me a few years back and asked if I'd come back, and I said, no, thanks. I said, I'm not giving up my 6 months in Florida. And they said, well, we can make this work. So I went down, and the reason I went down there, well, one, they had money. They got a lot of money, and that helped. They paid me well for 6 months. I never really worried about what I made until then. It was a good experience because I got to give back to the school that gave me my first job, and I had one job coming out. If I don't get into Canot Valley, then I'm not at Garaway 2 years later, and I'm not at, you know, just everything sort of fell into place. I really was fortunate to get good jobs, and jobs that you could compete, and jobs where kids wanted to win and do well, and gave you what they could give you. And, the first meal I had in Canot Valley, we were doing a workout in July. We probably had a whole 10 guys there, and I picked the corn, you know, and behind, I took it home to Yerkesville, and I cooked it up, and I'm making it, and I started chewing on it. It was really hard. Well, I'm a suburban USA guy. I called my dad and said, this corn is hard. He goes, you dumbass. He goes, that's field corn. I said, well, I'm hungry. This is all I've got right now. I'm not getting paid yet. So that was my first meal at Canot Valley. I stole some corn, and it wasn't what I was thinking. So I learned something that day. I went to Ashland. And Bob Stokes.
Yep.
You guys probably knew Bob. Yeah. And when were you at Wittenberg? Because my dad's parents went there.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
I was there 58 to 62.
My dad was there when Ray Belisari was there, and
Yeah, Ray was still there when I was there, Ray, yeah.
so you would have just missed my dad. But you knew my dad from coaching.
I did.
'Cause I remember, I don't know whether exchanging film or what it was, but I remember you and Staley were the guys I really remembered back when I came back at once, you know.
Yeah.
John, I didn't remember John.
We were always, we did the reserve team. That was,
Oh, that was the only time our class lost too.
is that right?
Yeah, when we were undefeated, both 8th grade teams, our freshman team was undefeated, unscored upon,
Wow.
and our non-league was Dover, Walsh Jesuit, St. Vincent, St. Mary. But our class also was pretty physically developed early, you know, and a lot of guys were hormone heaven, you know. And so we didn't lose then, you know, sophomore year until we came to Dover after we upset you guys the night before. And we had 5 sophomores starting varsity that year, which never happened at Hoover. But we weren't very good that year, and the sophomores were good. The guys that I played with were good. And so we we came down here, it was a hot day, and we got our butts kicked at Dover on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
You guys loaded up, and I got my butt kicked a lot. It was hot. It was hot. I just remember how warm it was.
Yeah.
So that was sophomore year.
We appreciate, from my perspective, Indian Valley South, Canaan Valley, all these schools today are, and having football, it's amazing to see the growth. And Donnie, what you did in coming back to help Canaan Valley again, they're in pretty good shape. I'm used to be someone you just sort of laugh about playing Canaan Valley, but it's not that way anymore.
Yeah, Derek O'Hare is doing a really nice job, and I just came down to try to develop a coach and try to get a program going, and they were hungry to do it and had the right administration, and so it was, I did I bought a lot of peanut butter and bread. A lot of peanut butter and bread.
Yeah.
No corn.
Now, I want to take an opportunity at this point to ask the audience, is there any questions that anybody have before I go on to finish and summarize this up? Does anybody out there have a question of anybody on the panel? Jerry?
It's really not concerning, you guys are here, but see, we're at Oberlin High School, not enough kids to play football. And I canceled the season. But I just saw where the HSAA passed where you could if your school didn't have a sport, you could go to another school and
It's always been the case.
I just wanted you guys to take, I mean, obviously it's a good thing for the kids. But what's happening, is that unusual for having 8 guys off of football?
That's a good question. I did some thinking about this before I came, hoping that somebody would ask that question. Because this is the first time I've seen that they publicly, 3 or 4 schools dropped football in the last 6 months, 6 weeks. Oakland was one of them. There was another one down south. There have been some attempts to go to a 7-man or 8-man football.
They're playing some 8-man right now.
Yeah. And the numbers that you get into, and where we're going to go with football, I think in the future, flag football is going to have an impact on regular football.
And they're just women?
No.
What's that?
No.
Why do not women?
Yeah, it's going to be male flag football. Does the state have that already, or is it?
I think the difference though is I think they're gonna have the male flag football in the spring.
In the spring?
Yeah, I think that was what I originally saw. Now, whether they stay with that or not, the state does what the state, to make money, so.
Yeah. Well, the state's all about making money. There's no doubt about that. But I think that's a good question to ponder. What is happening? I mean, Jimmy and Donnie probably more into why are kids not sticking out? Don, you want to answer first, and I'll let go to Jimmy.
Well, I've been out of it now 12 years, sort of. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I part-timed it, I guess. It's hard. It's hard. Phones, transportation, like Dover still, they have pay to play, correct?
Yes.
For 10 years, they have pay to play. I mean, I'm not a Dover person, but that's pretty terrible. I mean, 10 years ago, they did that, and they're still having pay to play. There's no way it can be good for your numbers in any sport. You know, especially a hard physical sport like football that isn't real fun to practice.
No. I'd say that's a good point. Pay to play. I made this. I was going to the Booster Club a little bit, and I didn't realize Dover was still pay to play.
I didn't either till talking to Dan.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I looked at it's not that expensive. It was like $150. And then if you played another sport, it was less or something. I forget what it was, but I mean, parents can get almost anything they want if they want it bad enough. And I don't know. There's a lot of things that I don't know, but the fact that you said it was hard, which it is, it's difficult. I don't think it's that dangerous. I mean, we all played and we're all still here.
I think it's safer now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
As far as the rules and,
So,
you know.
I think there's something to do with this. It's tough, and we aren't raising our kids tough, I don't think,
Definitely not the same.
you know. And, I don't know. It'd be disappointing if Dover didn't have football. It really would be. For a lot of people, because the fans, they come no matter what. And, it's something that needs to be taken care of. I just don't know how to do it.
I don't think this tradition will ever die, though.
What's that?
This tradition, I don't think it will ever die. I don't think people will let that happen.
I hope not.
Absolutely not.
I hope not, because that's,
I don't know. You have to experience success to know anything about failure. I think for the most part, kids going out, they can use a lot of different excuses, but it's tough, it's not easy. Jimmy, I know you coach in Strasburg, that's a different element of maybe kids there, but they're so close. How do you see getting the numbers out that you want to practice and play with?
Well, fortunately, ours has been growing. There's a lot of good tradition, and with Strasburg, there's a lot of families that once they graduate and stuff, they stay back. And so we're getting a bunch of the kids coming through whose parents played at Strasburg. So there's a lot of that, which helps us out a lot. But coaching in a small school is very difficult because there is so much out there. And people have bought into the fact that, you know, I don't want my son to get banged around. I don't want my son to get a concussion and this kind of thing. And that story, those stories that you see that they perpetuate in the news really does have an effect on a small community. And I think it affects other schools too. But the biggest thing I see is that kids, I don't want to say they're unmotivated because I think they're motivated, but they're motivated in different ways. And if you don't have success in your sport, such as Oberlin, their program, their high school program for years have been 1-9, 2-7, 0-10. So they lose that love for the game. Like they want to go and they want to be good, but I don't know if they love the game enough to go and do it. And I don't know if they have that love for that anymore. And that's the thing that really, our coaching now is more psychological than it is physical. I mean, you really have to know how to reach out and touch these guys and what motivates them and how to speak to them. Because anymore, and it's what you just said, you can't go and you can't holler at them anymore like you could, because they'll pack it in and say, you know what, this isn't worth it. And a majority of at least my athletes have zero ambition to go anywhere other than high school. They don't want to. They don't want to play college ball. I'll have 3 guys this year that are talking about playing college ball, and that's the first 3 guys in the last 5 years that I've coached. I know they just high school ball is enough, and they want to go into the workforce. They just want to go into college, be a college student, which is great. I don't fault them for that, and I'm very thankful that they put the time in they did with us. But you know, that motivation, that inside desire to go to that next level is a good driving force that affects the program.
There are no diehards anymore?
I think there are, but in different ways. I mean, I think I have a couple that are really invested, but once it's
Not
over.
like you.
Yeah, no. I was silly, I guess.
Well,
I mean,
how many kids do you have on your roster?
I have 28 this year, so it's one of our larger groups.
Okay.
So, and they're quality young men. I mean, very quality young men. I don't have anybody that I would trust with my house.
How many kids? I had a grandson who was small, played very hard, and you had a son that played and went through college. My grandson loved practice. I mean, he played for Dan Ifton, went to Washington Jefferson and played there for 5 years, but he loved to practice. That doesn't happen a lot. And you still love to practice, then there's, I don't know if there's, I think Keith's a pretty good kid, but I don't know if there's anything wrong with him or not.
You know, you mentioned that. Somebody asked me one time about football and why weren't you ever a head coach? I said, I've never had any desire to be a head coach. I just wanted to coach. And I said, I made a statement, but I enjoy practice more than the games. Because to me, it's like ninth period ends here at school and you go out there and that was 10th period. You're teaching a different subject, but you teach it the same way that you taught all through school. So I really enjoy practices. And
Well, isn't there less stress?
what's that?
Isn't there less stress
Well,
than a game?
yeah, obviously,
Sure.
but
Could be, but sometimes it's more stress because you're battling for a position.
Okay,
know,
if you're a
so-
player, yes.
Yeah, oh,
Okay.
as a coach,
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
that's all right.
As a coach, for me, there's more stress in practice because
Okay.
I'm
Same
in
here.
charge of
Okay.
making sure it runs smoothly. I'm in charge of putting it together.
Well, then it should be a
and
piece of
trusting my
cake by the
coaches.
time the game comes.
That's it. So if practice is hard, usually the games are pretty easy.
Sure, okay.
Here's what happens as a coach where stress levels can go high, is that you practiced, your schedule for that day is all dependent upon everybody being there. All of a sudden you get there and there's somebody not there.
Yeah, there's that wild card.
And, you know, the kid that's supposed to be there to do this and that new play or new status you have in the game for this week, he's sick or misses practice. That's what's frustrating. Now you gotta, on the fly, change your practice to make sure you got another person to, you know, because you need Jimmy. If Jimmy's not there, we're in trouble. So coaching practices are tough, but the kids need to be there. And for the most part, I think if a kid loves to practice and loves the game, he'll be there, no matter what. Now, I don't want to bring this up to bring a bad thing in, but I think you got to understand, we just had a child in Tuscarawas County that became paralyzed for the rest of his life. Young man from Tuscarawas, you remember that last year. He was only a freshman. He played in that game. His first year as a freshman playing, and he broke a vertebrae in his neck and he lost, you know, he's now paraplegic. Only one of those stories, that gets out and it spreads like wildfire amongst, this can happen to your child too. And what Donnie said was important, and that is safer now than it's been. I think so. But it just happened, one case in Tuscarawas County, 10 miles up the road, we lost a kid for the rest of his life. And that's why there's only 2 or 3 companies that make helmets anymore. Because there used to be 10 companies that made helmets. Now you got 2 that can take the potential catastrophic injury liability. And again, so that's a negative. But for every negative, the positives are so great. And again, I would not want to see anything happen to a Dover or to a New Philadelphia or to North Canton or Strasburg. You get the kids there with the right message. And that's a good point, Jimmy. You're a Dover kid, I can tell. You got that smart, he talked about the psychology of coaching. And that's great, that's a great point.
I have a question, if I may interject, or Tom, go ahead first. Go ahead.
What about politics? Why doesn't my Johnny start?
That was my question. The parent, how is parenting?
Isn't it more questions now than years ago?
It is, it's very
I
much
don't-
so.
growing up, you never.
This is where I would
Coaches that way.
always invite a parent to come to practice. I said, the reason your child's not playing is come to practice. Because we're not blind. There's not 10 guys out here that are blind as somebody who wants to play. They are hiding themselves in many cases. And again, that's my comeback to any parent. Come practice. You'll see why he's not playing. Again, he's over here hiding, playing grabby over here with somebody, and he's not paying attention to what's going on. I don't know if that's ever happened here, but we know, doggone well. If you're good, the people I had coaching with me, whether it was here or Barnesville, they're gonna play. We're not stupid.
Well, that was part of my question. How do you motivate these kids over here from the kids that are actually playing every day? And these kids are standing over here hoping to get into a play. Do you sometime during the year include them, or?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. We reevaluate after every practice.
Okay.
They'll
So
take
they're
them.
not always standing
No.
there waiting?
And JV games and freshman games, hopefully, if you have enough numbers.
No, true, that is true.
Let me touch on that. Some of you might know Ron Swigman. You probably do. I do. But Ron Swigheimer was a lineman, and he was not very good, and he would be the first to admit it, but he played so hard every play, every practice. What motivated him, I don't know, but that's obviously, the coaching and so on. But maybe by his senior year, he got to be on an extra point team, maybe. And yet, he was so happy to play against the varsity. Every time we wanted to work the varsity against somebody else, he was there. He was lining the kids up. He was giving them hell if they didn't play hard.
Well, that made him better than playing
It
against
made everybody
better
better.
kids.
It made everybody better.
Yeah.
And if you,
Adult too.
I mean, you've got competition. That guy, he gets right across from me every game, every practice. He wants to beat the crap out of me, That's where he is. He made me better, he made everybody better. And he was a leader of that reserve team that made things happen. And I use that a lot as example, and I tell kids that. I used to tell kids that. And maybe they understand. And if you've got parents at home saying, are you doing what you're supposed to do? Are you trying as hard as you can? Are you sprinting as hard as you can? Are you volunteering to get in there when you can? And some of them, like John said, they just the coach looking for somebody, and this guy's kind of hiding behind somebody else. I've seen it. And I've seen kids as sophomores, they didn't like contact. Didn't like the contact at all. By the time they were seniors, they were hitters. And all of it has to do with, physically growing up, mentally growing up, emotionally growing up, but you need coaches to make sure that they're doing that. Make sure that they're, like put your hand on their shoulder and say that. You did something really good today. Do that again. And the next time do it against somebody just a little bit bigger. And then it's amazing what happens.
One of the things that I found out coaching with other coaches than Dover. I coached 5 years with Barry Gottmiller. Barry was the coach at Carrollton. And Barry had coached at Camp McKinley and took that Carrollton job. And Carrollton wasn't very strong. Well, he built his program. But he did one thing that I would learn from, and that is he signed a contract with every kid. And on the contract, what he said was, you will play every weekend. You will play. And he put that in paper. I will guarantee you that you will play. So we as coaches had to get these kids in. Now, one thing he said, he left blank in there, is didn't say where you would play or when you would play. He said, you will play. If you give practice, you will play. Well, that meant that some seniors may have to play reserve. Now, what's the stigma for a senior playing on a reserve team? playing JV ball. But that's what you had worked, there's what your work got you to. You're gonna play in the JV game. And we had kids come up to us and say, I don't wanna go. He said, put it down on paper, I don't wanna go. Make your parents realize that you're not going because you don't wanna go. You're gonna play today, I guarantee you're gonna play. And that was one of the best things as a coach I would tell any young coach. Guarantee the kids that they will play. That was the most difficult thing. I coached junior high football for IFTY a couple years ago. It was pretty much a rule that you had to have everybody play. Man, you were scattered looking for, have you been in? We've got to get you in. Got to get, because we had that policy. Now, before we go too much farther, I want to get this in. Again, where we are today with football. Football today, okay? Here's something I noticed, and I just noticed this in the last couple of weeks. Professional football is changing. And here's why. They want to run the football more. Gee, that's not a bad idea. It's not going to be 65 passes a game. You understand the difference between pro football and high school and college football is the hash marks. Look where your hash marks are in pro ball. Look where they are in high school. Well, you can have a spread offense in high school football pretty easily and spread people out all over the place. But the pros are bringing it back down, condensed, closer and closer. And they're getting all the players involved. When you run pass routes, it's not just to the right or to the left. It's the entire 5 people involved in the route. And they want to run the football more. Take my word for it. Watch pro football this year. Colleges are doing it, but colleges have a disadvantage because they're playing with the hash marks that are high school hash marks. But you condense that field a little bit more, and an entire change is there. Just watch the hash marks and where they put the ball at, because it's different. Okay, coaches, playoffs. What do you think about the playoffs? High school playoffs.
Well, when I was coaching, we went 10-0 and practiced an extra week and didn't get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We only took like 3 teams. So that was one side of it. Now they've gone the other way. Now we have it watered down so bad that when the team, wins 3 ball games for the year, gets in the playoffs, I think it's watered down a little too much, too many divisions.
What do you think, Donnie, on that? That's a point that I wanted to just carry on real quick. You're more connected with Division I groups than up in Stark County. What do you think about Division I? There's only like 2 or 3 teams that don't get into Division I playoffs, the super teams. What do you think about it?
Too many teams.
Too many teams?
Yeah, if you're not good in football, you don't want to play week 11. It's the last thing you want to do.
That's right.
If you're not having a good year, you don't want to play anymore. And for any medium-sized school to small school,
Why are they doing it?
your kids are playing 2 and 3 sports. So I don't want guys getting hurt in week 11 when Canada Valley's playing Hillsdale with 65 kids in the first round.
Yeah.
And I'm telling my quarterback, don't be a hero second half. You got basketball and baseball coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, that was more important than that, we're getting beat bad, but, just too many teams.
Too many teams in it?
It's all money.
No, I was getting ready to say, don't you think it's all money?
No, without a
It's
doubt.
definitely money.
Because if you look at the prices now, 5 years ago, to go to the state football game, you paid $8. Now it's 15, and next year it'll probably be 20.
Everything's money.
Yeah.
Everything.
And the nice thing is the state listened to the coaches and at least cut it down from 16 to 8. And I think that's a really good idea. I also like the fact, what's
8 or
that?
12.
8.
It's 8 or 12 now.
It's 8, I think it's 8, because
First
last
team
year
didn't get a bye?
we were saying, first 4 get a bye, and then the second 4 play,
Okay,
and then they go and distribute themselves.
gotcha.
What were you gonna say, Tom?
Why are there so many divisions now?
Well, that's one of the things we're talking about here. They took Division I, and every school in Division I makes the playoffs, almost except for a couple. And you got some offers, 0-10, they're on the thing. I don't know what they're trying to do. Money drives it, Brett, I think you're right. But it's still, the kids know if they're good or not. And to go play in a game that doesn't mean very much other than get a team another game on the schedule. Jerry, what were you gonna say? You asked something there.
I wonder, why are they doing it?
It's all.
I went to college with the president of the association, Doug Ute. He was a very good basketball player, and we've talked on the phone a couple times. And when he's honest with me, it's all about money. Of course, he hasn't made many decisions I've really liked in the last 5 years, so. But
It's the same thing, all Ohio. Used to be all Ohio, then some. Now you're all Ohio amongst 45 guys.
first team All Ohio Division I quarterbacks, so we'll have 4 or 5 on the first team.
Did you?
Yeah.
Obviously, you never went to any of those meetings where they coaches lied about how good their kid was, right? I would sit in those meetings and listen for district coaches talking to you about players, and they would bring in all these stats and all this stuff. Well, they never were that good against me. Where'd you get all these numbers from? So coaches want to get their kids recognized, but for the most part, if you go through and look at football in general, in my 60-some years of doing it, I can pick out the best football players I've ever seen. If you ever saw Chris Spielman play, Donnie, were you old enough to remember Chris
Yeah,
Spielman
he's
play?
a couple years behind me.
Was he good or what?
He's pretty good.
Did you see him on the field compared to other people stand out? Yeah, I mean, obviously, he was standing. He could do everything. He returned kicks. He returned punts. He played defense. He ran the ball from tailback. What an athlete. Okay, you can see the good ones. If you pay attention, you can see the good ones. Too many divisions. So is that what we want to do? Playoffs? Is that enough said?
Well, I'm gonna go and be the devil's advocate on that. Coming from a school that's the second smallest school in the state of Ohio, if we didn't have 7 divisions, I would have not made the playoffs last year. Because we're just not gonna stand up to some of those schools that are much larger and have a lot more to draw from. I mean, we're talking Strasburg, last year we graduated 42 kids. So for me to get 8 kids out of that class to play football is nice. I've had years where I've had 2. My first year, coming back to Strasburg in 2023, we had a graduating class of 28, and there was only 4 boys in that class. So, and only two of them played football and 2 of them were in the band. So that's it, those 4 boys. So if we didn't have 7 divisions, we would really have a rough time building that excitement that the town needs.
Yeah, I know, personally, I know one that came to Dover, so, and I'm not sure how many were in, but we saw that what he was going through, if he'd have stayed at Strasburg, was.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I totally get it, and I totally understand it, and that's just the nature of it.
But you weren't there.
No, I was not there.
And the promise of being better didn't look like it was on the horizon.
True.
And
That was a rough patch.
yeah, but what you've done in the last number of years is outstanding.
Well, I appreciate that.
No, I'm serious. And again, playing with numbers with boys, I would have been more apt to hope that Strasburg would have gone to an 8-man football league instead.
Right.
Of
But
dropping it.
again, and then you're talking about that tradition, Dover would never let that happen. I can't see that. I mean, even the year before I took the job, and they only had 12 kids out, and had to go door to door, and they somehow, the community stepped up and got those kids to do that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they went 1-9 that year, won the last game of the season. You would have thought that they were Super Bowl champs. And,
Yeah.
you know, and that says something. They finished the season with 14. And that's tough. And that's something when they interviewed me for that job after that season, I had a lot of reservations because you can't do anything with 14 kids. I mean, it's just impossible. And luckily, we had 22 come out my first year back. Yeah, but also, we were fortunate last year to win our first round of the playoffs. And, I mean, that atmosphere was incredible at Ron Hurst Stadium. The people that turned out for Strasburg, but the people that turned out for the surrounding community. I saw more people from like Dover and Philly and around the area come to that than I thought was possible. They were standing along the fence. I mean, it was exciting. It was really exciting.
You know, something that I think is, it was really surprising to me, but when I was in school, that was a long time ago, but there were, I think we had 3 sports. We had football and basketball. They didn't have baseball, they had track. And when I was there, they started the first baseball team. And maybe Dover had one years before, but I don't remember that. But now, there are probably 35 or 38 different sports that the school has to field. And, you know, and the Boosters Club has to pay for it. And it's tough. It's tough all the way around because, you know, and there again, you know, I want my kids to be playing this or doing that or something, but it spreads everything too thin.
How many schools play every sport in the state? Does North Canton play every sport? Don?
Pretty much. I mean, they don't have.
They got lacrosse, field hockey, whatever the state sports are.
Girls lacrosse.
Because I remember talking to Dave Bircher about all lacrosse in North Canton.
Yeah, it affected our football a little bit. Just some numbers, some guys would go out and maybe didn't go out for football. It affected our numbers a little bit.
Lacrosse in the spring or fall?
Spring. And, or maybe they blew a knee out and then they weren't ready for football season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe they got hurt. Just have to recruit kids to get them out there and, you know, try to get them practicing and playing.
Okay.
Just one comment back to when we were talking about the playoffs and how much money it generates and all that. What is the State Athletic Association doing with all this money? Is it helping other things or is it just kind of lost in that?
That's a great question. I think it went into some paintings that they might have.
Those guys eat well. Again, the association, what they're after in money, I'm not understanding. But
I mean, if somehow it's getting back to the schools and helping the programs, that's one thing, but.
No, it's not
they're
doing
generating all this money and it's just kind of getting lost in outer space.
Yeah, I'm not sure where, and I know he's really been forthcoming on saying where the money's going.
Those playoffs.
Playoffs generate money, but it's not going back to schools. I've seen
Pre-sale, some of the pre-sale, like a
Yeah.
20% pre-sale or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't pay to have a playoff game at home, like if your team's not playing, because they take all the money. Except maybe parking.
Parking and
Concessions.
concessions, but I think they're splitting concessions now.
So they don't make it very friendly that way.
Go ahead, Jerry.
One thing, the emphasis on playoffs. The season starts, all you hear is about the playoffs. The season seems like it don't mean anything anymore. We're gonna make the playoffs. Used to be, before the playoffs in the day, season's over, you pick up the paper, who's number one? Like voting, coaches, or whoever, I don't know. That was who was number one. Now it seems like before they even start, playoffs. That's all you hear.
Our goal was always to win the league first. You know, that was our goal, win the
Right.
league first, and then if you do that,
That's
then
right.
you'll probably be in the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
Donnie, who was North Canton's biggest rival?
Jackson?
So Jackson was your biggest rival?
Uh-huh.
You always played them game 10?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, we let them win, too. It's like Dover, New Philly, right?
I think Jackson has like 150 players, 9 through 12 or something like that this year.
I can remember when Jackson was the size of, Tuscarawas, or they're about the same size. But now it's like unbelievable, huge. This is going on an hour and plus, almost a half, so I wasn't planning on much more than that. Questions from the audience? Panelists want to say anything? Let me start with Coach Meese. Coach, is there anything you want to say before we go?
I would think, as far as we talk about numbers of kids in the program, some people get a hold of these kids when they're really, really young. Like soccer. You can start playing soccer, you don't have to worry about getting hurt. So these kids are exposed to these other sports long before football gets a chance to even talk to them. So I think that has a lot of effect on the numbers you're seeing up in high schools.
The feeder system's so important.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, it's more important now than it's ever been.
What's that?
The feeder system
Oh,
is so important. I think that's something that people haven't talked about with the job Coach Wallick's done at Caraway. Doug Young and a couple other guys have been in charge of their youth football for probably 15 years, maybe pushing 20 years, and he does things right, so the kids keep coming out.
Pee Wee leagues.
Yes. You know, I started, when I was there, 32 to 40 years ago, in that range, I started flag football in 5th and 6th, and then they played middle school football. But they didn't even have flag back then. And in talking about getting the younger kids, a lot of people now do flag in 1st grade because that's when soccer did it.
Yeah.
And that's when basketball does it, and that's what, it's
I can remember when I came to Dover in 1970, we had 4 7th grade teams. We were always had 4 quarterbacks in the program.
right.
So if one decided to drop out, there was always 3 more in that class, and that made a big difference because everybody was playing.
Yeah.
You get 4 football teams playing every week. That's a lot of kids.
Yep.
Things have changed.
And there wasn't much else either. There wasn't no
No,
soccer.
that's right.
Yeah.
I remember Tom Redden said to me one time, he says, Jim, if we lose one kid to soccer, it's gonna hurt our football program. That's how tight it was back in those days.
Yeah.
It's going to get worse with the TV and World Cup and.
Indian Valley has chosen not to have soccer, is that correct? I think strategically, is that true? I heard that rumor, I don't know if that's.
Probably.
Is there a good reason for that?
They play football.
They do that?
You know,
They do.
sometimes you add sports and now you're average at everything instead of being good at something. And I'm not saying don't add sports. We had a problem in Canaan Valley. We had kids play football and golf. It was okay when Dave DiDonato was the AD because he scheduled enough golf matches, but not too many. Then my last year, we had a different athletic director and we have guys missing 2 days of practice for football.
Scheduling is the toughest part.
Think about that one.
You're involved in 2
So it's not fair to anybody.
No, it isn't.
Plus, they're shooting 100. Golf. It's not like they're any good, but they're getting out of prep well. It's high school athletics. They're a little more liberal than us.
Can I ask a question?
Fly.
Yeah.
Just real quick, what, at the top of your head, who is the best player you ever coached, if you don't mind? If you had to pick one, who would it be?
Best player?
Best player. Start with you, John.
Jamie DeVore. Jamie was good in all sports. But Jamie was special. Now, I didn't coach, I played against Paul Huff. He was a difficult problem when I was a sophomore and he was a senior. Jamie was a special kid. And was gonna ask the questions too, about who was the best coach you ever coached against or played for. Donnie's dad's on the list. My top 5 coaches I ever coached against. Now, I was, one of the things you may not know, I was in the Ohio Valley Conference for 15 years of my coaching. And that's like a fraternity down there. And those coaches down there are good. I mean, that's a Reno Suckoch, Bud Billiard, those guys that played down there, Mike Young, those guys were hellacious coaches. But I picked the best coach ever, probably, that I coached with is before and played for Dick Haynes. Dick was special. It's just like picking that #1 best player out. Who is special?
Coach Meese, can you name one? If you're not a player, then a coach that was the best, either one or both.
Coaching wise, I'd probably say Ed Sherman at Muskingum. Different type of breed. I mean, he's the kind of guy that I remember one week I had 2 interceptions against Mount Union, and I was walking across the campus on Monday, and he walked right by me. He didn't say hello. I mean, that's the kind of guy I was. But he and I would sit at a table, and he'd set the offense up in the M Club room, and I would set the defense up, and we'd do that a couple hours every day during the whole season. But no personality at all. I mean, that's just the way it was. As far as, it's awful hard to name one player because, I had a lot of good offensive tackles at Dover. Brent Kelker, I thought he could have played at Ohio State. He ended up going to Akron and getting lost. I don't know what happened up there. But what an athlete he was. And Craig Weiss was a first-team All-Ohio. Todd Altier was first-team All-Ohio. So there were a lot of good tackles there, and since I coached at tackles. And Robbie Woods, I coached him as a tight end, or a split end, and he was quite an athlete also. It's hard to pick out kids because I thought all of them played well.
Yeah, and then again, I picked Jamie out like that. That team was, there's a reason why that team was 10-0. People that Jim just mentioned contributed to that team. That 10-0 team was special. And they had quite a number of those kids were in there. Good linemen. One of the things that coaches talk about, well, you were good when you had good linemen, because that made it a lot easier for those backs to run through. How about you, Tom?
Coach, I have picked my dad.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's in my list.
I would pick him because of the way he taught kids and the way he was just tough, he was tough. Hurt my shoulder one time down in Cambridge, and I came over to this I came over like this. He said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I hurt my shoulder. It's bothering me." He said, "Tackle with the other one."
The Lord gave you 2.
That's the way I grew up.
Is that the reason your shoulders are bothering you today?
What's that?
Is that the reason your shoulders are bothering you today?
I don't know. It could be. It was this one, and I already had it done.
Right.
But as far as play, I don't know. I'd hate to pick one because there's so many good ones. If somebody said, well, I'd have to pick a swimmer. But I just there were so many good ones. I hesitate to say
He's in trouble, yeah.
because they each had their qualities, and Ron Zwickheimer, he had tremendous qualities. He never gave up. He'd get beat up and knocked down, and he'd back up again, trying harder, And there's a lot of kids like that, that they're never going to make anything as far as all this or all that, but they made the team what it was. So, yeah.
Jimmy, how about you?
As far as coaches go, I mean, the 3 gentlemen here, I respect and I've learned a great deal from. I don't think I'd be the person I am today without them. I really do. Their guidance was great. And that goes with all the other coaches that were with Dover throughout my tenure. Coach Haycock had a major impact on me and my life and taught me some valuable lessons. The one guy, though, that I learned the most football from was Dan Ift. I thought he was tough on me. He demanded excellence. He treated me fair, but he also held me accountable. And I think that lesson really helped me becoming a head coach and having that confidence to become a head coach. But I wouldn't be anywhere without these gentlemen coming through high school. They guided me and they directed me in the right way, and very valuable in my life. As far as players go, I'd love to sit there and pick one that I coached that I thought was outstanding. And I think they all are. Anybody that commits to my program is an athlete that deserves to be remembered. And I really would tarnish any one of them if I just picked out one kid, because that's the beauty of football. You might have, C. Grant or something, but if you don't have 10 other guys around that trust in him, what he's doing, his talent doesn't shine. I mean, Jamie was an outstanding ball player, and I'm just using him because you referenced him. But if James Black wasn't there, if Tim Bober wasn't there, if that line wasn't there, if Rick Zerker at tight end, if Robbie Woods wasn't there, he shines, but does he shine as bright? And these guys really help that out, and that's just the way it is. That's what the beauty of football. Growing up, I always wanted to be like Dean Richards. I always wanted to be like Tim Barlock. I mean, those guys were the guys they were tough. They were hard to beat. I mean, they got nailed and they get right back up you and never know it. Freddie Todd, a year younger than me, tough kid. I mean, he was the Jim Brown of Dover. He'd run and you'd think he was dead after someone hit him. And you'd have to pick him up. He was like, he'd line up and get again. He'd knock off an 80-yard run then. I mean, he was really good about that. And he was a young man that really cared greatly for Dover football, and he's up in Mansfield right now doing a great job as a coach. And so there's just so many. I don't want to ramble, but a lot of people that I really respect and had a great impact on my life.
Donnie, we'll let you.
I'll speak for my dad a second. He had Dick Snyder, who played NBA for 14 years. He was a quarterback recruited by Woody Hayes. Baseball, he would have been drafted if he would have gone to play baseball. When I met him when I was an adult, he was 6'5", 6'6". I never saw a guy walk through North Canton hallways that looked like him. He was a special athlete, and that would be my dad's time. And then Jeff Logan was the starting tailback at Ohio State the year after Archie, and had more yards than Archie that year than Archie had his Heisman year the year before. And then had a high ankle sprain his senior year and played fullback and tailback, but didn't have the senior year. But Jeff Logan was, for my dad's time, legit. And then I had Eric Howard, who's in prison now. He was two-time Mr. Football. Shouldn't have been his senior year, but he was. And he lived with me as a junior, and then it's a long, long story. We're still working on it. But he, by far, people wouldn't like me saying this, but you talk about Chris Spielman, and Eric was a smart kid, made a bad choice, and got a lot of years extra than he should have got, I think, but that's a whole other story, but we're working on that. But his first game as a freshman, he makes 3 stops at the goal line against Boardman. They were first and goal in our 3, and he makes 3 tackles at middle linebacker. We just moved him up for freshman. He played with the freshman team. We just moved him up because he was a backup on the varsity. And the first time he carried it at Lake, he went 65 yards for a touchdown. But he was like a Chris Spielman, but a better running back than Chris was, and probably not as good a linebacker. But he decided he didn't want to go to school very bad and want to do other things. So it's a sad one, but it's what it is.
I would like to thank the coaches that joined us here today that, you know, putting their time. Jimmy, I know you got a big thing going this week, so
Yeah,
first game is always,
exciting.
don't forget this. One thing I want to tell you about the first game. The special teams will end up being a cause of win or a loss every time in the first game. Block a punt, fumble, this type of special teams, be careful. Just make sure you get them in.
We got extra attention. We have that built in already.
Good.
May I have one other question?
Yeah, Greg.
For Dover, are we happy we're back in the Cornell Conference?
I think it's a good
Oh, I think
Oh,
it's-
I really do. I think it's a good
Thumbs up on
thing.
that one.
You have to be in a conference. You need something to
I'm glad we're in a
direct
conference,
yourself.
Yes,
but
thank you.
I don't know, some of the teams aren't happy that we're in that conference.
Sure.
And of course, I couldn't believe after all went through that West Holmes is leaving the conference. Those long rides home from Mansfield get tired after a while. I coach baseball and football, so those are long rides.
You know what's funny?
They were.
When we were in school, we played in the
COL.
COL. We played Lancaster and Chillicothe and Zanesville. Oh, yeah, Newark. And we always had Dover fans following. And when Dick Haynes came, we got in the, Cardinal Conference.
Cardinal.
And I'd hear people complain because they had to drive all the way to Mansfield. And it was just interesting. But Dover people follow Dover football. They really do. I mean, it's more than just something to do on Friday night. They really love Dover football.
It's an event.
Yeah.
I want to thank John for coordinating this. You did a great job, John. Thanks for putting it all together. You recruited our panel and did all that hard work, so thank you for doing that. Maybe this will take off, and maybe we'll do the version of this annually or something like that. So give us your feedback. Coach Morris, you got film to watch, probably. Good luck. We really wish you the best this year. We'll always love hearing you speak.
Just like Norton Black, doesn't he?
Yeah.